Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Stamps Old World UK. Today, we are going to explore another fascinating historical postage stamp from Germany that comes from one of the most dramatic economic periods in modern history. The stamp you are looking at in this video is a German inflation-era stamp from the year 1923, and it carries the large denomination of 1 million marks. This small stamp may look simple, but it represents a powerful story about economic crisis, postal history, and the unique world of stamp collecting. At the top of the stamp, you can clearly see the words Deutsches Reich, which means German Empire. This inscription was used on German stamps during the early 20th century and continued into the period of the Weimar Republic after the First World War. The design of the stamp is very decorative and detailed, with an ornamental circular pattern in the center and elegant typographic elements around the edges. German stamp designers were well known for their precise engraving and symmetrical patterns, and this stamp is a great example of that classic style. In the center of the stamp, you will notice a large number 1 along with the word Millionen. In German, the word Millionen means millions, so the denomination of this stamp is 1 million marks. During normal times, a value like 1 million would seem extremely large for a postage stamp, but during the German hyperinflation crisis of 1923, even millions of marks quickly became necessary just to send ordinary letters. To understand why stamps with such enormous values were produced, we need to look at the historical background. After the end of World War I, Germany faced severe economic challenges. The country had heavy war debts and reparations to pay, industries were damaged, and the government began printing large amounts of paper money to try to manage its financial problems. As more currency entered circulation, the value of the German mark began to collapse. Prices for goods and services started rising faster and faster, creating one of the most famous cases of hyperinflation in world history. By the year 1923, the situation had become extreme. Everyday items like bread or milk could cost thousands, then millions of marks. Workers sometimes received their wages several times per day because money lost value so quickly. People rushed to spend their money immediately before prices increased again. In many cases, people carried huge stacks of banknotes just to buy basic necessities. This economic chaos also affected the postal system. The cost of sending letters and packages increased constantly as inflation accelerated. The German postal authorities had to respond quickly by issuing stamps with rapidly increasing denominations. At first, stamps were printed with values of hundreds or thousands of marks. Soon, those values became millions, and later even billions of marks. The stamp featured in this video is part of that extraordinary inflation series. It shows a denomination of 1 million marks, which was necessary at that time just to keep up with rising postal rates. These stamps were printed in large quantities because the demand for higher value postage was enormous. Postal offices needed huge supplies of stamps that could match the constantly changing rates. From a design perspective, the stamp is quite attractive. The base design includes a central circular pattern with detailed engraving lines that create a symmetrical decorative effect. The number 1 in the center clearly indicates the denomination, while the word Millionen confirms that the value represents 1 million marks. The color of the stamp is typically a deep reddish or brownish tone, which was common for many German stamps of this period. Collectors around the world find German inflation stamps extremely interesting because they provide a visual record of one of the most dramatic economic events of the 20th century. Each stamp from this period reflects a moment when inflation was rapidly escalating and the postal system had to adapt to the collapsing value of money. Now, let us talk about the market value of this stamp today in US dollars, which is a question many collectors and viewers often ask. Even though the stamp displays a denomination of 1 million marks, its modern collector value is usually quite modest. The main reason is that large quantities of these stamps were printed during the inflation crisis. For a typical example of the 1 million mark stamp in average mint condition, the market value today is usually between $1 and $5. If the stamp is in excellent condition with original gum, clean perforations, and strong color, it might sometimes sell for around $5 to $10, depending on collector demand. Used examples with authentic postal cancellations sometimes attract slightly higher interest, especially if the cancellation date clearly matches the correct inflation period. However, collectors should always be cautious when buying used inflation stamps because fake cancellations are relatively common. Some stamps were later given artificial postmarks in order to increase their apparent value. Serious philatelists often examine the style of the cancellation and the ink to determine whether the stamp was genuinely used during the correct time period. Another factor that can affect the value of these stamps is the existence of printing varieties. Some stamps from the German inflation period have different perforation measurements, color shades, or minor printing errors. These varieties can sometimes be more desirable to collectors and may have higher values than the standard issue. Even though many inflation stamps are not extremely expensive, they remain one of the most popular collecting areas in philately. Their historical importance makes them fascinating to study and collect. They remind us how quickly an economic system can collapse and how everyday objects like postage stamps can become witnesses to major historical events. Collectors often build entire albums dedicated to German inflation stamps, organizing them by denomination, year, or printing variety. Some collectors also search for postal covers from the inflation period, where several stamps were used together to meet rapidly changing postage rates. These covers provide an even deeper look into how people communicated during that chaotic time. When you hold a stamp like this 1 million mark issue from 1923, you are holding more than just a piece of paper. You are holding a small but powerful reminder of history. It represents a moment when the value of money changed dramatically and when the postal system had to adapt quickly to keep communication moving.
Next up, the famous hyperinflation period of 1923, when the German currency lost value so rapidly that postage stamps had to be constantly updated with new, much higher denominations. This particular stamp is a remarkable example because it clearly shows how the postal system struggled to keep up with the extreme changes in the value of money. At the top of the stamp, you can see the words Deutsches Reich, which translates to German Empire. This was the official inscription used on German stamps during that time. The design of the stamp is classic and decorative, featuring a detailed circular pattern in the center with ornamental lines radiating outward. This artistic style was commonly used in German stamp printing during the early 20th century and gives the stamp a very recognizable appearance for collectors. If you look closely at the center of the stamp, you will notice a large number 2 printed prominently. Below that, the word Millionen appears, which means million in German. Together, the overprint reads 2 million marks. At the bottom of the stamp, you can still see the original printed value of 2 million marks as well, which shows that this stamp belongs to the series produced during the peak of Germany's hyperinflation crisis in late 1923. To truly understand why stamps like this were produced, we need to look briefly at the historical background. After the end of the First World War, Germany faced enormous economic pressure. The country had to pay heavy reparations, industries were damaged, and the government printed huge amounts of money to try to manage debts and expenses. As more and more currency entered circulation, the value of the German mark began to collapse. Prices started rising faster and faster until inflation reached levels that are difficult to imagine today. By the middle of 1923, the situation had become extreme. Everyday goods such as bread, milk, and basic supplies could cost millions of marks. Workers were sometimes paid several times a day so they could spend their wages before prices increased again. People carried large stacks of banknotes just to buy simple items. In some cases, the paper used to print money became more valuable than the currency itself. The postal system was heavily affected by this economic chaos. Postal rates increased almost weekly and sometimes even daily. The German postal authorities needed stamps with constantly higher denominations in order to match the new mailing costs. Printing entirely new stamp designs each time would have taken too long, so the solution was to take existing stamps and apply new values through overprinting. That is why we see stamps like the one in this video with large, overprinted numbers representing millions of marks. These inflation stamps became one of the most famous collecting areas in Philately. There are hundreds of different varieties issued during 1923, ranging from thousands of marks to millions, and eventually even billions of marks. Collectors around the world find these stamps fascinating because they visually represent the collapse of a currency system and the struggle of a nation facing severe economic instability. This stamp shown here is part of the 2 million mark issue from the Deutsches Reich inflation series. The base design features intricate circular engraving with decorative borders, while the denomination was printed prominently to ensure it could be easily recognized during postal transactions. The color of the stamp is a deep reddish-brown tone, which was common for this particular issue. Now, let us talk about the most common question collectors ask, which is the market value of this stamp today in US dollars. Even though the stamp displays a very large denomination of 2 million marks, its collector value today is generally quite modest. The reason is that enormous quantities of these stamps were printed during the inflation period because the demand for high-value postage was extremely high at that time. For a typical example like the one shown here, in good mint condition without major damage, the current market value is usually between $1 and $5. If the stamp is in excellent mint condition with original gum and perfect perforations, it may sometimes reach around $5 to $10, depending on collector demand. Used examples with clear and genuine postal cancellations may occasionally sell for slightly higher amounts, sometimes around $10 to $20, if the cancellation is verified as authentic from the correct period. However, collectors should always be cautious because many inflation stamps were later given fake cancellations to increase their apparent value. Because genuine postal use during specific rate periods can be desirable, some stamps have had artificial postmarks added later. Serious collectors usually examine the cancellation style, ink, and date to confirm authenticity. Another factor that can affect the value of this stamp is the presence of printing varieties. Some stamps from the inflation period exist with different perforation measurements, color shades, or unusual printing characteristics. Rare varieties, such as shifted overprints or printing errors, can sometimes be worth significantly more than the standard version. Even though the financial value of many inflation stamps is not extremely high, their historical importance makes them very popular among collectors. These stamps tell the story of one of the most famous cases of hyperinflation ever recorded. They are small historical documents that remind us how fragile economic systems can become during times of crisis. Collectors who study German stamps often build complete collections of the inflation period, organizing them by denomination, issue date, or printing variety. Some collectors also specialize in postal covers from the inflation era, where multiple stamps were used together to meet rapidly changing postage rates. These covers can be especially fascinating because they show real examples of how people sent letters during that chaotic time. The stamp you see today is a wonderful example of how a small object can carry a powerful historical message. It represents not only the art of stamp design, but also a dramatic chapter in economic history. When collectors hold a stamp like this, they are holding a piece of the story of Germany in 1923, a year when inflation changed everyday life in ways that are still studied by historians and economists today.